20 years of marriage. 3 kids. A business I built from nothing. Then I found the motel key in her car. The protection with 3 missing. My wife wasn't working late. She was meeting her boss at a $40 a night dive. I didn't just catch them. I destroyed them both methodically. My name is Dorian Hayes. I'm 44 years old, and I've spent the last 20 years building Hayes Climate Control from the ground up. Started with just me and a beat-up van, doing HVAC installs for folks who couldn't afford the big companies. Now I've got 8 guys working for me, 3 service trucks, and a reputation in Austin that money can't buy. I'm the guy people call when their AC dies in August, when it's 105 outside and their kids are melting into the couch. I married Vanessa 20 years ago. She was 22, working as a receptionist at a hotel downtown. I was 24, covered in duct sealant and refrigerant burns, but I had ambition. She liked that about me, she said. Said I had drive. We had Ethan a year later, then Madison 3 years after that, and Connor came along when we thought we were done having kids. 3 beautiful kids who didn't deserve what was coming. Vanessa worked her way up to event coordinator at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Big place, lots of conferences and weddings. She was good at it too, I'll give her that. Organized, detail-oriented, knew how to talk to people with money. The job paid decent, gave her something to be proud of outside of being a mom. I supported it, encouraged it even. That was my first mistake. It started subtle. Maybe 6 months ago, though I can't pin down the exact moment things shifted. She'd come home an hour later than usual, claiming some last-minute crisis with a wedding reception or a corporate event. I didn't question it. That's the hospitality business, right? Emergencies happen. Then it was 2 hours late. Then 3. Dorian, you don't understand the pressure I'm under, she'd say when I'd mention it. Her voice had this edge to it, like I was the unreasonable one for wanting my wife home for dinner with our kids. I'd be at the kitchen table with Ethan, Madison, and Connor, reheating whatever casserole I'd thrown together. Ethan, 17 and sharp as a tack, would glance at me with this look. He knew. Even at 14, Madison felt it too. Only Connor, at 11, still asked innocent questions like, when's mom coming home? The phone thing really got to me. Vanessa used to leave her phone on the counter when she showered, on the nightstand when we went to bed. Now it was in her pocket, in her purse, locked with a new passcode I didn't know. When I asked about it, she laughed it off. The hotel makes us change passwords monthly for security, she said, not meeting my eyes. Corporate policy. I'm not a suspicious man by nature. I fix air conditioners and heaters. I solve problems with wrenches and gauges, not by spying on my wife. But something in my gut was turning sour, like old milk you don't realize has gone bad until you've already poured it in your coffee. Then came the Friday that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning in March, when everything came into focus. Vanessa's car wouldn't start, battery dead as a doornail. She was panicking because she had some big event at the hotel, so I told her to take my truck. I get her car jumped and drive it to work. You're a lifesaver, she said, kissing my cheek like everything was normal. Like she wasn't hiding something that would blow our family apart. After she left, I called my buddy Rick, who runs an auto shop 2 blocks over. He came by with his jump kit, and we got the sedan running in 10 minutes. I climbed in, adjusted the seat, checked the mirrors. That's when I decided to clean out her car. Vanessa was always leaving junk in there, coffee cups and receipts, and promotional materials from the hotel. I popped open the glove compartment. That's where I found it. A key card from the Riverside Inn, one of those cheap motels off Highway 71. The magnetic strip was worn like it had been used multiple times. My stomach dropped like I'd stepped off a cliff. I kept digging. Behind the insurance papers and vehicle registration, I found a small box. The kind jewelry comes in, but when I opened it, there were 3 missing from a pack of protection. My hand started shaking. The kind of tremor you get when your body knows something your mind doesn't want to accept yet. I sat there in her car, in our driveway, staring at that motel key card. The Riverside Inn. I knew that place. It was 30 minutes outside Austin, the kind of spot people go when they don't want to be seen. $40 a night, no questions asked, paying cash if you want. I should have confronted her right then. Should have called her, demanded answers. But I'm a methodical man. I fix problems by understanding them first, gathering all the information before I make a move. You don't troubleshoot a faulty compressor by guessing. You test every connection until you find a break. So I made a decision. I'd watch. I'd wait. I'd gather evidence until I had the whole picture. That afternoon, I drove to an electronics store in South Austin where nobody knew me. Bought a GPS tracker, one of those small magnetic ones that sticks to the underframe of a car. Cost me $95. I installed it that night in Vanessa's wheel well while she was inside, putting Connor to bed. The next day, I created an account and watched the little blue dot on my phone as Vanessa drove to work. The Grand Meridian Hotel, just like she said. She stayed there until 2 in the afternoon. Then the dust started moving. It went straight to the Riverside Inn. She stayed there for 3 hours. 3 hours in the middle of a workday, at a cheap motel 30 miles from her job. When she came home that night, she looked tired, smiled at me like nothing was wrong, asked how my day was, helped Madison with her science project. I wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her. Wanted to scream, but I kept my face neutral, my voice steady. I learned a long time ago that anger without evidence is just noise. I needed more than a motel key card and a GPS. I needed proof that would stand up in court, that would protect my kids, that would make sure she couldn't twist this around on me. That weekend, I told Vanessa I had an emergency install in San Antonio. Big commercial job, I said. Had to leave Friday afternoon. She barely looked up from her phone when I told her. Okay, babe, she said. Be safe. I wasn't going to San Antonio. I was going hunting. Friday came, and I played my part perfectly. Kissed Vanessa goodbye, told the kids I'd be back Sunday night, threw my duffel bag in the work van like I was heading to San Antonio. But I only drove 15 miles before pulling into a truck stop, where my friend Tom was waiting with his Ford Explorer. Tom and I went back to high school. Played football together. Worked construction one summer when we were broke and stupid. He's the kind of friend who doesn't ask questions when you need help. Just shows up. You sure about this? Tom asked as I climbed into his passenger seat. Yeah, I said. I need to know. We drove back toward Austin, staying off the main roads. I had my phone open, watching that blue that represented Vanessa's car. She left the hotel at 6:30, right on schedule. But she didn't head home. The dot moved south, toward Highway 71, toward the Riverside Inn. There, I said, pointing. Tom pulled into a gas station across the street from the motel. We had a clear view of the parking lot. Vanessa's sedan was already there, parked near room 117. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the crumbling asphalt. We waited. I had my camera ready, one of those long lens models I borrowed from my buddy who does real estate photography. My hand was steady now. The shaking had stopped once I'd made the decision to see this through. 20 minutes later, a silver Lexus pulled into the lot. I recognized it immediately. Nelson Palmer, regional manager of the Grand Meridian Hotel chain. Vanessa's boss. 42 years old, married with 3 kids of his own. I met him twice at company parties. Firm handshake, fake smile, the kind of guy who talks about synergy and leveraging opportunities. He got out of his car, looked around like a thief checking for cops, then knocked on room 117. The door opened. Vanessa stood there, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Something tight, something she definitely didn't wear to work events. They embraced in the doorway, and then he pulled her inside. I raised the camera and started shooting. Click, click, click. The shutter sound was the only noise in Tom's truck besides my breathing. Jesus, Dorian, Tom muttered. I'm sorry, man. I didn't respond. I just kept taking pictures. Nelson's Lexus, the room number, the timestamp on my camera. Evidence. Cold, hard, undeniable evidence. They stayed in there for 2 hours and 43 minutes. I know because I timed it. When they finally came out, Vanessa was laughing at something he said. He grabbed her waist, pulled her close, kissed her right there in the parking lot under the buzzing neon sign. I got that on camera too. After Nelson drove away, Vanessa stood by her car for a minute, checking her phone. Then she got in and headed home. I tracked her on GPS the whole way. What now? Tom asked as we drove back to his place. Now I call someone, I said. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I've been holding onto for 3 days. Rachel Palmer, Nelson's wife. I'd gotten her number from the company directory Vanessa had left on her desk at home. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. And Rachel deserved to know the truth, just like I did. I hit dial. Rachel Palmer answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was cautious, professional. Hello. Mrs. Palmer, my name is Dorian Hayes, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm calling because I have information about your husband that you need to know. There was a long pause. Then, what kind of information? The kind that involves my wife. Vanessa Hayes. She works under Nelson at the Grand Meridian. They've been meeting at the riverside and off Highway 71. I have photographs, GPS logs, timestamps. I thought you deserved to know before I file for divorce. The silence on the other end stretched, so long I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard her take a shaking breath. Send me everything, she said. Her voice had gone cold, hard as steel. I want to see it all. I emailed her the photos that night. Every single one. Rachel called me back an hour later. How long, she asked. I don't know for sure. I found evidence going back at least 4 months, but it could be longer. Nelson told me he was working late on regional reports, she said, and I could hear the bitterness in her voice. Tuesday and Thursday nights, sometimes Fridays. Said he had to travel to inspect properties. I believed him. Vanessa told me the same thing about event emergencies. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm a family law attorney, Mr. Hayes. I know exactly how to handle this, but I need your help. If we coordinate our divorces, present our evidence together, we can make sure they don't walk away clean. What do you have in mind? I asked. Meet me Monday morning. I'll bring my private investigator. We're going to bury them both. Monday morning, I met Rachel at a coffee shop in Round Rock, far enough from Austin that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. She was 37, blonde, sharp-eyed, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her investigator was a woman named Diane, mid-50s, ex-cop with a no-nonsense attitude. Here's what we've got, Rachel said, spreading photos across the table. Her investigator had been busy. There were pictures of Nelson and Vanessa at restaurants, walking into the motel, even one of them at a park near the lake, holding hands like teenagers. How long have you been watching them? I asked. 3 weeks, Diane said. Rachel hired me after she found hotel receipts that didn't match Nelson's stories. We've documented 14 separate meetings. Rachel pulled out another folder. This is the financial analysis. Nelson's been using our joint credit card to pay for the motel rooms, dinners, gifts. $23,000 over the past 6 months. I've already frozen our accounts. Vanessa's been more careful, I said. She's been using cash, but I found withdrawals from our savings that don't add up. Small amounts, 100 here, 200 there. Adds up to about 8,000. We'll use it all, Rachel said. Both of you will file for divorce simultaneously, citing adultery with evidence. In Texas, that matters. It affects property division, spousal support, everything. They won't see it coming. I looked at this woman, this stranger who'd become my unlikely ally, and felt something shift. I wasn't alone in this anymore. We were two people who'd been betrayed, and together, we were going to make sure there were consequences. When do we file? I asked. Friday, Rachel said. Give me 4 more days to finalize everything. Then we hit them both at once. I shook her hand. It was the handshake of 2 soldiers going into battle together. The days between Monday and Friday moved like molasses. I went through the motions at work, installing air handlers and checking refrigerant levels while my mind churned through what was coming. At home, I played the dutiful husband, made dinner, helped Connor with his math homework, asked Vanessa about her day like I didn't know she was lying through her teeth. Wednesday night, she came home late again, 11:30, smelling like hotel soap and guilt. Big corporate event, she said, kicking off her heels in the entryway. Product launch for some tech company. It ran way over. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a beer I hadn't touched. Must have been exhausting. You have no idea, she said, and the casual way she lied to my face made my blood simmer. But I kept my expression neutral. Thursday morning, I started moving my things. Not everything, just what mattered. I rented a storage unit across town under my business name. Loaded up my tools, my fishing gear, the photo albums from before Vanessa poisoned everything. My dad's old pocket watch he gave me before he died. The deed to the land my grandfather left me in Bastrop County. The 50 acres Vanessa didn't know was solely in my name. I've been careful over the years. When I started Hayes Climate Control, I'd set it up as a sole proprietorship. Vanessa wasn't on any of the business accounts, never had been. The company trucks, the equipment, the commercial contracts, all of it was protected. My lawyer, Carl Brennan, had confirmed it Tuesday afternoon. Your business assets are separate property, Carl had said his office downtown. As long as you can show she had no involvement in building the company, the court can't touch it. She didn't, I'd said. She worked at the hotel the whole time. Never lifted a finger for Hayes Climate Control. Thursday night, I went to Tom's apartment and dropped off 2 duffel bags of clothes, my laptop, and a box of documents. Rachel Palmer had given me a checklist: bank statements, tax returns, evidence of Vanessa's spending, proof of my income. Everything organized in manila folders like we were preparing for war. Because we were. You ready for tomorrow? Tom asked, handing me a beer. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. Friday morning came. I woke up at 5, showered, put on my work clothes like it was any other day. Vanessa was still asleep. I stood in the bedroom doorway for a minute, looking at her. 20 years of marriage, 3 kids, a life we'd built together. And she'd burned it all down for a man in a $50 motel room. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt resolved. I made coffee, scrambled eggs for the kids when they stumbled downstairs. Ethan looked at me funny, like he could sense something was different. You okay, Dad? He asked. I'm fine, son, I said. Better than fine. At 7:30, I kissed Madison and Connor goodbye, told them I loved them. Ethan was driving himself to school these days, so I pulled him aside before he left. Whatever happens, I said quietly, you take care of your brother and sister. You understand. His eyes widened. Dad, what's going on? You'll know soon enough. Just remember I love you kids more than anything in this world. He nodded slowly. Smart kid. He knew something was coming. I left the house at 8. Drove to my lawyer's office in downtown Austin. Rachel was already there with her attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Voss. Carl laid out the divorce papers on the conference table. We're filing at 9, Carl said. Process servers will deliver to both Vanessa and Nelson simultaneously at 9:30. Rachel's motion for emergency asset freeze will be submitted at the same time. What about the kids? I asked. We're requesting temporary custody pending a full hearing, Carl said. With the evidence of Vanessa's affairs and her financial misconduct, the judge will likely grant it. Patricia nodded. Nelson's going to be blindsided. He has no idea we're coming. Good, Rachel said. Her voice was ice. At 9 o'clock, we filed. At 9:30, my phone started ringing. I didn't answer Vanessa's calls. Let them go to voicemail, one after another, 17 in the span of an hour. Rachel's phone was blowing up too. Nelson, panicking, trying to control the situation. Neither of us picked up. By noon, I was at Tom's apartment loading the last of my stuff from his place into my truck. I'd rented a small house on the east side of Austin, 2 bedrooms, month-to-month lease. Far enough from our neighborhood that Vanessa wouldn't accidentally find me. Carl called at 1. The judge granted your motion for temporary custody. Vanessa's been ordered to vacate the family home by 6 p.m. today. You can return home with the kids tonight. What about Nelson? Rachel got her emergency asset freeze. Nelson's accounts are locked. He can't access anything without court approval. The hotel chain was notified of the affair this morning. He's been suspended pending an internal investigation. I felt a grim satisfaction settle in my chest. Not quite revenge, but something close. Justice, maybe. At 3 o'clock, I drove back to the house. The kids would be home from school soon. I needed to be there when they arrived. When I pulled into the driveway, Vanessa's car was gone. The front door was unlocked. I walked through rooms that suddenly fell hollow. She'd taken some clothes, her jewelry, personal items, left everything else. On the kitchen table, I left 3 things for her to find when she came back for more of her belongings. A photograph, one I'd printed from the surveillance at the Riverside Inn. Her and Nelson, kissing in that parking lot. Next to it, a bank statement showing the $8,000 she'd withdrawn from our savings. And finally, a locked metal box containing copies of every piece of evidence we had. Motel receipts, GPS logs, the divorce papers. I didn't leave a note. The evidence spoke for itself. At 3:30, the school bus dropped off Connor and Madison. They came running in, and I caught them both in a hug. Dad, Connor said, what are you doing home? I'm here to stay, buddy, I said. Where's your mom? Madison asked, looking around. She's staying somewhere else for a while. I said carefully. We need to have a family meeting when Ethan gets home. Ethan walked in 20 minutes later, took one look at my face and knew. We all sat in the living room, the 4 of us. I'd rehearsed this conversation in my head 100 times, but nothing prepared me for the look in their eyes. Your mom and I are getting divorced, I said. No point sugarcoating it. She made some choices that hurt our family. I have custody of you 3. You'll be living here with me. Is it because of her boss? Ethan asked quietly. My head snapped up. What? I saw them, Ethan said. His voice was shaking. 3 months ago, I was downtown with friends, and I saw Mom's car at a motel. I saw her with some guy. I didn't know what to do. Madison started crying. Connor looked confused. I pulled Ethan into a hug, and he broke down sobbing. "It's not your fault," I said fiercely. "None of this is your fault. You hear me? I should have told you." Ethan choked out. "No," I said. "This is on her. Not you. Never you." We sat there together, my 3 kids and me, holding on to each other while the life we'd known shattered around us. But we'd survive this. We'd rebuild. Because that's what families do when they're tested. That night, after I got the kids settled, I sat alone in the kitchen. Vanessa never came back to the house. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel Palmer. "Nelson served. Lost his job. House is mine. Thank you for being my ally in this." I texted back, "We did the right thing." And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. 6 weeks after I filed for divorce, life had settled into a new rhythm. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Connor still asked about his mom sometimes, his 11-year-old brain struggling to understand why she'd left. Madison threw herself into volleyball, staying late at practice like she could outrun the pain. Ethan became quieter, more protective of his siblings, like he'd aged 5 years overnight. I'd moved us into a bigger rental house in Cedar Park, 3 bedrooms with a fenced yard for the dog we adopted from the shelter. A black lab mix named Diesel that Connor picked out. The kid needed something to love that wouldn't let him down. Work kept me busy. Hayes Climate Control was booming. Turned out people respected a man who handled his business with dignity. Word spread about the divorce, and somehow my client list grew. Folks wanted to support the guy who got cheated on, but didn't fall apart. I was in the garage one Saturday afternoon, teaching Connor how to change the oil in my truck, when Madison yelled from inside, "Dad, someone's here." I wiped my hands on a rag and walked around front. Vanessa's sedan was parked to the curb. She got out, looking thinner than I remembered, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. She'd aged in 6 weeks. "Dorian," she said. Her voice shook. "Can we talk?" "No," I said. "Anything you need to say goes through my lawyer." "Please," she said, and tears started falling. "Just 5 minutes. I need you to understand." Connor came out of the garage, saw his mother, and froze. Vanessa's face lit up. "Connor, baby," she started toward him. "Go inside, son," I said firmly. Connor looked between us, then ran into the house. "You're turning my children against me," Vanessa said, her voice rising. "I'm not doing anything," I said. "You did this yourself. You chose Nelson Palmer over your family. You don't get to come here and play victim." "It was a mistake," she said. I was confused. The attention, the excitement, it made me feel young again. But it's over. Nelson and I, we're done. Rachel took everything from him. He's broken, Dorian. And I realized I don't want him. I want you. I want our family back. I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You want me back because Nelson's broke? Because his wife destroyed him, and now he's got nothing to offer you?" "That's not what I meant." "Get off my property," I said. My voice was cold, level. "You made your choice when you met him in that motel. When you lied to our kids' faces. When you stole money from our savings to fund your affair. You don't get to come crawling back because your backup plan fell through." "I love you," she sobbed. "I made a terrible mistake, but I love you." "No," I said. "You love the stability I provided. You love the house and the life I built. But you didn't love me enough to stay faithful. Now leave before I call the cops for trespassing." She stood there crying for another minute, then got in her car and drove away. I watched her taillights disappear, then went inside. Ethan was standing in the kitchen, his jaw clenched. "You okay, Dad?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay." And I was. Because I'd already grieved the woman I thought I married. The woman standing in my driveway was a stranger. The custody hearing happened 8 weeks after I filed. Rachel Palmer and I coordinated our cases, just like we planned. Her divorce from Nelson was brutal, public, and decisive. She got the house, full custody of their kids, and alimony that would keep Nelson working until he was 70. My case was different. Vanessa fought me. She hired a lawyer, some guy named Richard Kemper, who specialized in making wrong spouses look like victims. He tried to paint me as controlling, claimed I'd isolated Vanessa, driven her into Nelson's arms by being emotionally unavailable. Carl demolished him. "Mr. Hayes worked 60-hour weeks building a business that supported his family," Carl said in court. standing before Judge Patricia Bradford. He coached his son's Little League team. He attended every school event. Meanwhile, Mrs. Hayes was spending $8,000 of their savings on motel rooms and gifts for her lover. That's not a woman who was neglected. That's a woman who made a choice. Carl presented the evidence. Every photo, every GPS log, every receipt. Vanessa sat at her table, crying quietly while her lawyer tried to object. Judge Bradford shut him down. "I've seen enough," the judge said. Mrs. Hayes engaged in an extramarital affair that she funded with marital assets. She showed poor judgment and a pattern of deception. Primary custody is awarded to Mr. Hayes. Mrs. Hayes will have supervised visitation every other Saturday, for hours, until such time as she can demonstrate stability. Vanessa's face crumpled. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off. The property division was clean. The house was in both our names, so we'd split the equity when it sold. But Hayes Climate Control was mine, the judge confirmed. The business, the trucks, the equipment, the accounts, all of it stayed with me. Vanessa got half her savings in her car. This court finds that Mr. Hayes built his business independently, Judge Bradford said. Mrs. Hayes contributed nothing to its growth or operation. Therefore, it remains his separate property. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt 10 pounds lighter. Ethan was waiting outside with Tom, who'd driven him there. My son looked at me, and I nodded. "We won," I said. Ethan hugged me hard. "Good." 3 months later, the divorce was final. I got a call from Carl on a Tuesday afternoon. "It's done," he said. "Papers are signed. You're officially single." I hung up and sat in my truck outside a job site, staring at nothing. 20 years of marriage, over. 3 kids who'd have to grow up in a broken home. A woman I'd loved who'd thrown it all away for a man who couldn't even keep his job. But I wasn't broken. My kids weren't broken. We were healing. That night, I took Ethan, Madison, and Connor out for burgers at their favorite place. We sat in a booth, and Connor asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Are you sad, Dad?" "No, buddy," I said honestly. "I'm not sad anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful for you 3. Grateful we're together. Grateful we get to start fresh." Madison smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. "Me too." Ethan raised his soda. To starting over. We clinked our glasses together, and, for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. A year and 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I was at the house fixing the fence in the backyard when someone knocked on the front door. It was a Saturday afternoon in late April, the kind of day where the Texas heat hadn't quite kicked in yet, and you could actually work outside without melting. Connor answered it, then yelled, "Dad, someone's here for you." I set down my hammer and walked around front. Rachel Palmer stood on my porch, and from the look on her face, something was wrong. "Rachel," I said. "What's going on?" "Can we talk?" she asked. "It's about Vanessa." We sat on the porch steps while the kids played basketball in the driveway. Rachel looked tired, older than her 37 years. "Nelson's filing for bankruptcy," she said. "Complete financial collapse. The alimony I was getting? Gone. He lost another job last month. Can't keep anything steady. His lawyer contacted mine yesterday." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Rachel had been through enough. "That's not why I'm here," she said. "Vanessa came to see me last week. She's desperate, Dorian. She lost her job at the hotel 6 months ago. The Grand Meridian fired her after the affair became public. She's been working as a waitress, barely making rent. And now she's blaming me for everything." My jaw tightened. What did she say? She said I destroyed Nelson's life, which destroyed her life. That if I just stayed quiet, they could have been happy together. She actually asked me for money. Rachel's voice was bitter. "Can you believe that? The woman who helped wreck my marriage asked me for a loan." "What did you tell her?" "I told her to leave my property before I called the police." Rachel looked at me. "She's unraveling, Dorian. I thought you should know. She might show up here again." "Let her," I said. "She can't touch us anymore." Rachel stood to leave, then paused. "You know what the worst part is? Neither of them ever took responsibility. Nelson still claims it was all Vanessa's fault, that she seduced him. Vanessa blames everyone but herself. They deserve each other." After Rachel left, I went back to fixing the fence. Ethan came over, holding a basketball. "Who was that?" he asked. He was 18 now, heading to Texas State in the fall on an academic scholarship. "Rachel Palmer," I said. "Nelson's ex-wife. She wanted to warn me that your mom's struggling. Ethan's expression hardened. Good. Son. No, Dad, he said. I know you want us to be better than that. But she made her choice. She chose him over us. Now she gets to live with it. I couldn't argue with that. At 18, Ethan had more clarity than most adults. That evening, Madison came home from volleyball practice and announced she'd been named team captain for next year. We celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Connor told jokes that weren't funny but made us laugh anyway. And I looked at my 3 kids, healthy and happy, and knew we'd made it through the fire. Vanessa never came by, never called. The supervised visitations had ended after she missed 3 in a row. The kids stopped asking about her. Life moved on. 14 months after the divorce, I met someone. Her name was Jennifer Reeves, and she was a music teacher at Connor's middle school. I'd seen her at parent-teacher conferences, always professional, always kind to kids. She was 39, a widow who'd lost her husband to cancer 3 years earlier. No kids of her own, but she loved teaching them. We started talking at a school fundraiser. Nothing heavy, just small talk about Connor's progress, about music programs, about life. She had this laugh that made you want to keep talking just to hear it again. Would you want to get coffee sometime? I asked before I could overthink it. She smiled. I'd like that. Our first date was at a cafe in Round Rock. We talked for 3 hours. About our pasts, our kids, our mistakes. She didn't judge me for the divorce. Didn't ask invasive questions. Just listened and shared her own story. My husband was sick for 2 years before he died, Jennifer said. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. But it taught me that life's too short to waste on people who don't value you. I'm learning that too. I said. We took it slow. No rushing, no pressure. I introduced her to the kids 3 months later at a casual barbecue. Connor loved her immediately. Madison was cautious, but warmed up when Jennifer asked about volleyball. Ethan was protective, watching her carefully, but eventually he pulled me aside. She's good, Dad, he said. She's real. 10 months after our first date, I asked Jennifer to marry me. Simple proposal, nothing fancy. We were at Zilker Park with the kids, flying kites on a Sunday afternoon. I pulled out the ring while Connor was distracted by a dog. Jennifer Reeves, I said, you brought light back into our lives when we needed it most. Will you marry me? She said yes, tears streaming down her face. The kids cheered. Even Ethan, who'd been skeptical about me dating, hugged her. We got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at a chapel in Austin. Ethan walked Jennifer down the aisle. Madison was the maid of honor. Connor carried the rings. Tom was my best man. Rachel Palmer came, bringing her kids. It was intimate, genuine, full of people who'd stood by us. Hayes Climate Control kept growing. I hired 3 more technicians, bought 2 new trucks, landed a contract with a major commercial developer. The business I built alone was thriving. The kids flourished. Ethan graduated top of his class, headed to college with a full ride. Madison got recruited for volleyball by 2 universities. Connor made honor roll every semester. And Vanessa? I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to Dallas, trying to start over. I wished her well, genuinely. Not because I forgave her, but because holding on to anger would have poisoned the life I'd rebuilt. 2 years after the divorce, I stood in my backyard watching Jennifer and Connor plant tomatoes in the garden. Ethan was visiting from college, helping Madison wash my truck. Diesel the dog was sprawled in the shade, content. This was my life now. No lies, no betrayal, just honest love and hard work. And it was better than I ever imagined it could be.